We're joined now by Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com. And if you don't go to footballscoop.com, you should. It's a great website that, they just have every kind of football news you can possibly imagine, especially for college football. They do a great job. And Zach Barnett joins us now. And Zach, right now the big story nationally is, what is the SEC going to do about their scheduling model? For years, they were very adamant about staying at 8 games. Now that they're about to have 16 games, a 9th game makes a ton of sense. The popular model is 3-6, but some teams are holding out, hoping that they do 1-7, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense. Where do you think this will eventually head?
I mean, I think with any of these issues in college sports, or I guess in business in general, you follow the money. And there's far more money to be had in expanding the 9 games, both on the front end or on the large scale, because that's 8 extra games you can sell to ESPN, and that's another game you can sell to season ticket holders, another game of concessions, and on the money train rolls. I mean, I think the goal here is to diversify the SEC schedule that everyone in that conference agrees has grown stale, and to go to the 1-7 model where you would lose annual games like Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee, in Texas A&M. I mean, it feels like a step backwards. In reality, it would all be done to protect the Arkansas and the Kentucky's ability to make the Birmingham Bowl. Like, it seems real penny wise and pound foolish.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty clear to most people, Zach, that this 3-6 seems to make the most sense. What argument do you think there is, if any, for the alternative?
I read a story today about how I think most people expected when the ADs got in that room yesterday, they'd hash it out and come to a pretty quick consensus that most of us got to, which is the 3-6 model. And then I think some minds were changed during that meeting towards the 1-7. I can't sit here and say who's on what side, but I think it's much closer to 50-50 than it was before the meetings. And I think the concerns are twofold. One being the bowl bids, and 2 being access to the college football playoff, because as of yet, we've yet to have a 2-loss team make the playoff. And so I think some are arguing that adding another conference game would be the SEC, cutting off its nose to spite its face. But that ignores the reality that outside of the SEC, right now the SEC is the only conference that would be okay with keeping the playoff at 4 teams. Everyone else wants it to expand. So it's going to go to 8 or 12. And then at that point, the SEC and the Big Ten will probably both get 10 and 2 teams into the playoff. And at that point will become irrelevant.
Yeah, it seems to me that every argument you hear against either expanding the playoff or changing the schedule is, what if this very specific and rare situation would happen, which I don't think is a good argument for anything.
Yeah, it's very small-time thinking. I mean, what best serves students, fans, players is to be able to play SEC teams as often as possible. What best serves TV partners and therefore the money people within the athletics department is to play SEC games as often as possible. So clearly, those 2 constituencies are far best served by the 3-6 model. And so I have to believe that's still going to be the one that wins out in the end.
Zach, the SEC spring meeting's going on. There was a lot of talk, a week ago about, Saban and Jimbo going to be in the same room. It's not turned out to be much in terms of, actual drama or anything like that. Quite the opposite, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those guys said what they need to say. Jimbo, in particular, got what he wanted out of it. He said his piece and won the exchange. I mean, I'm sure you guys saw the story that the A&M baseball team basically painted a mural of him in the dugout of the SEC baseball tournament. I mean, his approval rating within Aggie Nation is about 150% right now. So there's really no reason for them to get into it. I'm sure I'm sure tensions will flare again on the recruiting trail or in October. But really, I mean, what it boils down to is an issue of semantics. I think it no longer is it a pejorative to say that a coach bought a player or a recruiting class, right, wrong, or indifferent. And Jimbo took offense to that when really he could, if he just come out and said, yeah, we're ahead of the game here. Our staff and our fans have done a great job, and they've put us in a great position to succeed. Then this whole story would have been a big nut. This whole story would have even been a story.
Zach, one thing we haven't talked about on our show yet, but I thought it was an interesting story, and I saw it on the website, and it's outside the SEC. But Jeff Brom, a week ago or so, was doing an interview, and they asked him about not taking the Louisville job, and he said, look, he likes Purdue, but it's year 6, and you never know what's going to happen in the future. But the Louisville job isn't obviously open. Scott Satterfield had that job, but he's not really all that popular there right now. How do you and he's responded to it. How do you see that situation playing itself out in Louisville, especially now that they have a new AD who may not want to be saddled with Scott Satterfield?
Yeah, I mean, Scott Satterfield's certainly on thin ice at Louisville, especially given the fact that Louisville has after enjoying a long period of time as the premier program in that state, has certainly fallen behind Kentucky football in that state. They're just kind of a drift in the middle of the pack, anonymous program within the ACC, which is not that great of a conference right now. And then the fact that I don't think he's ever really gotten over, at least in the minds of a lot of fans, of him, interviewing for the South Carolina job in 2020. And now here you have, literally the crown prince of Louisville football and Jeff Brom, who's, the son of a former Louisville quarterback and Louisville high school coach who says he'd be open to it. And yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Scott Satterfield needs to have a really good year. And you look at their schedule, as I wrote about in our article, their first 9 games, probably 7 of them could go either way. They get South Florida, which should be a win. They open against Syracuse. They should beat them. They play James Madison. They should beat them. The other 6 really could go either way. And their last 3 are probably, as of now, probably losses. They close with Clemson, NC State, and Kentucky. So if they go into those games, something like, 5-4, something like that, they could be staring a 5-7 season right in the face. And then at that point, the Jeff Brom talk starts to heat up big time.
Zach, we've, obviously anybody covering college football these days has spent a lot of time talking about NIL, talking about the transfer portal. Now we've got all of these leagues, doing away with their championship games, trying to streamline scheduling, trying to just figure out ways to kind of shake things up. And we've also discussed before how the NFL has seemingly just taken all this free land that college football has given them, especially in the month of December, and gladly taken it. As college football as a whole is shifting and changing in every type of way imaginable, what do you think is imperative for the sport overall, or what moves would you like to see the sport overall make to further establish its foundation or to maybe grow a bit?
I think some sort of NIL standard baseline would be great. I'm not holding my breath because at this point it seems like only Congress has the authority to step in there, and they certainly don't seem interested in that. But I think ultimately, college football's problems are on the field, and I think I really think if A&M, if Texas, if USC and Miami can get their act together, then this monopoly we have at the top of Alabama, Georgia, throw Ohio State, the SEC powers as we think of them, plus Ohio State, that monopoly could break up. And if you have some real parity at the top, then this sport becomes really, really fun to follow, at least during the season again.
Zach, what do you think is going to, you mentioned 8 or 12, what do you think is the best model, and what do you think that they will eventually do on the playoff?
I mean, I still think the model that they originally trotted out there, the 12-team playoff with 6 auto bids and 6 at-large bids, I think that satisfies the largest numbers of concerns. I think it already would have been passed if not for A, Texas and OU joining the SEC, and B, if not for the Big Ten bizarrely throwing in that they need an auto bid, even though I don't think there's ever been a time when the Big Ten champion has been the seventh highest rated conference champion. I don't think that's ever happened, but for some reason they felt like they needed that protection. So at the end of the day, I still think that satisfies the most needs because that makes the most money. And as I said in my first answer here, usually whatever makes the most money for the most people ends up winning out.
Would you consider the winner of an SEC playoff the national champion?
No. Usually there's at least one team out there that has to that can make an argument. And first of all, I don't think that an all SEC playoff is anything more than a bargaining chip. Mm-hmm. And second of all, I think if it were to be done, I think it would be done with the idea that the all SEC winner plays the alliance winner, for lack of a better term, and it set up mirroring the old Super Bowl when it was the AFL and the NFL.
Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com. Zach, thanks so much for hopping on with us today. And again, like I told people, if you're not on Football Scoop, you got to be on Football Scoop. Great website.
I agree.
Yeah. Hey, we'll ask you real quick because you guys do delve so much into the football. How about Tim Brewster going to Jackson State?
I mean, that guy has just been all over the place, hasn't he?
Right.
That right there told me. I think we've all believe that Deion's prepping for an eventual Power 5 move, and that right there is a move that he's getting that guy for the next job.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. Yeah, it is. And I wonder what that job will be. As a Florida State alum, I'm very curious about it. Very, very curious. Because, the kind of rumors, Zach, I don't know if you heard this, but like his interview when they hired Mike Norvell, everybody kind of thought like, oh, they're giving Deion kind of an interview because he's Deion, but they said apparently his interview was great. They just weren't comfortable making that jump right then. So,
Oh, I believe that. I believe the entire reason he took the Jackson State job was to eventually get the Florida State job. If Mike Norvell, goes 12-0 this year, I think he would, take another Power 5 job if offered to him. But there's no doubt in my mind that this entire mission has been to get the Florida State job.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it. Like, look, it's been too long since the glory days. Zach, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great weekend. And again, get on footballscoop.com.
Sounds good. Thank you.